Airports Company South Africa has declared dividends of 816 million rand over the last 5 years. State-owned companies are supposed to be an asset for the state, with the expectation that as they do well, then the state can also benefit. But this has become a rare phenomenon, with the state having to boost SOEs with additional funding to aid them in their operations. So what's been the secret to ACSA's success in this regard? I'm joined by Luzuko Mbotya. He's the Chief Financial Officer at ACSA. Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us. So in your latest annual financials, how much did you declare in terms of dividends, and how did that compare to the previous year? And also, as a rule, what percentage of your profit do you pass back to shareholders?
Good afternoon, Nompu, and good afternoon to the viewers as well. Look, in the current financial year, we've really had a phenomenal performance financially. And to an extent that we are now declaring, in fact, we're paying about 768 million of preference shares back to DOT, and for the 8 million of ordinary dividends, which will then be split between DOT, who is the biggest shareholder, PIC, and other shareholders. So it's really from the back of very good financial performance that we've experienced in the current year. And to the question, well, what has led to this phenomenal performance is it's really going back to the drawing board. You would recall that during COVID, the advent of COVID-19, where we saw no traffic at our airports, we then had to go back to the drawing board, revise our strategy, and came up with a recover and sustain strategy, which really seeks to apply sound business principles, reducing cost, find opportunities, pocket of opportunities in non-aeronautical revenue. And that's what we are basically experiencing in the current year, fruits of those decisions that were made during the COVID years.
Yeah, I just want to go back to those horrible COVID years, 2020 and 2021. When it came to dividends, did you actually declare dividends in those years, or presumably you couldn't?
No, not at all. We, in fact, during the peak of COVID, we then had to go back to our shareholders and seek assistance when it comes to funding, and that's where the preference share was then issued by to ACSA by DOT, and we did not declare any dividends since 2019. In fact, the last dividends that we declared was in 2019 of about 56 million, and we literally have not declared any dividends since. And we're quite happy and excited that we've gone back to our normal routine of declaring dividends in each financial year. In fact, before 2019, we declared about 4 billion of dividends since 1999 to 2019. So, but 4 billion of dividends over a period of 10 years.
Do you know whether, when you do hand over those dividends to the shareholder, essentially the government, whether they ring-fence that money to support the aviation sector, or it just goes into the general pot?
Look, that's the conversation that we are having with the National Treasury. In fact, when we started having this discussion around dividends, it is precisely what we seek. So how we ring-fence these dividends and then we reinvest them to aviation. But in terms of process, National Treasury is quite clear that there is a clear queuing process to the fiscal budget. So all that we need to do, declare dividends, and then get into the queue like any other SOE and where to be allocated funds. And that's precisely what has happened. And we're quite comfortable that I think for ACSA, we are self-sustained, a self-sustainable business. So we don't really need to queue for any budget allocation from National Treasury. But it certainly would contribute even more if those funds were to be ring-fenced and reinvested to the aviation sector.
Yeah. Of course, it's great that you're in the aviation sector. You're a global player where you're receiving and, releasing passengers into the wider world and all of that, and you're able to earn your revenues in that way. Sometimes people's operating model doesn't quite work, but in your case, it does work. But the most important thing, one would argue, is governance. How important has governance been to ensure that any revenues and profits that you make actually ensure that you continue to help greasing the wheels of the fiscus?
Yeah, look, governance is really in the center of our operating model. We have various board subcommittees that they have a clear mandate. We've got the investment committee, the audit committee, they all have very clear mandate, and they really run like your normal corporate business. And fortunately, we benchmark ourselves with your international airports. We don't look at ourselves as an SOE, and I think that really drives then the performance of ACSA.
Indeed, indeed. And then lastly, in terms of looking forward, it does look as though the global economy is going to pick up ever so slowly, but of course it's much better than the COVID years. So what's the expectation in terms of revenue and profitability going forward? And will you continue, do you think, to continue giving the fiscus a leg up, so to speak?
Yeah, look, currently we are reporting at about 88% to pre-COVID-19 numbers, and there's definitely still a headroom for us to grow our business, and we anticipate that we should get back to the pre-COVID-19 in the next 2 years, and that really presents us with the great opportunities. In fact, when we compare how we've performed now at 88% to pre-COVID-19, we're more or less hitting the same profit margins that we were reporting pre-COVID. So you can imagine, as soon as we then get back to the 100%, our performance will be quite phenomenal. So an opportunity for us that we're looking forward to.
All right, Luzuko, thank you very much for your time. That was Luzuko Mbotya, the Chief Financial Officer at ACSA.